In this video, we're going to revisit the library features just real briefly, and then we'll be on into the 3D sketch. So one of the things in creating the sketch, since this is going to be a rectangular profile, I created a folder underneath my Weldments as just bar stock, something that I want to be able to calculate the lengths. A good question would be, why don't I just draw it as a regular extrude? And the regular extrudes, if it's not applied to the 3D sketch, is not going to generate lengths in the cut tables. So we want to take advantage of that table, so we're going to need this library feature part to maximize. So one of the things to keep in mind, let's just jump into another sketch here real quick. When I create the rectangle, keep in mind that you can go from corners, which will crisscross, which is usually my preference. And then you can also go from midpoints so that it ends up putting in all of those locations, all of those connection locations for the profile. And the other item of quick note is that if you save this as a library feature part without the sketch selected, it's going to give you an empty set. It's going to tell you there's nothing in there. So make sure that you select the sketch. And I already saved this as 16th by ½ inch. And so when I do a save as, and it comes back to my profiles, and again, one of the reasons I keep these, or at least accumulate a few of them, is if I decide that that's not going to be big enough or it's too big, it's easy enough to get back in there and make adjustments to it and create a new feature off of the part. So the library feature part, it jumps back into program data, all the way down. I go back into my system files, go into the Weldment profiles, find my ANSI inch, locate the bar folder that I created, and hit save. So at this point, this is going to be the only thing in there that is usable. So I don't want to add anything else to the library feature part or to the part. We're actually ready to start our structure. So one of the other items then real quick was the rounded edges. I'm not real concerned about those. Even if it was full, ob round, for what we're doing, that is pretty much negligible geometry. So if it was critical, then we'd have to do something a little different, rounding off those ends, make it a slot, put in the points at the corners to make it contact. Alright, so I'm going to go with my part fractional, and one of the, on the size-wise that this can get kind of tricky, is if I decide I need to go over to fractional, or if I'm handing this off to be built in a fabrication shop that deals in fractional inches, then it's nice to have the dual dimension available as inches, no decimals, at 16th inch increments. Alright, so it doesn't necessarily have to be two different units. First is I'm working in decimal, and that's going to be fine for the majority of what I'm doing, but occasionally there will be, if I dual dimension it, I would like to see 16ths or 30 seconds. And so once we have determined the units, now we're into creating the 3D sketch. Alright, so 3D sketches are one of those. Be careful with them. Expect that you will build a 3D sketch up to a point to where it starts over defining, and not necessarily any rhyme or reason why it won't do what you want it to do. And when I get to that level of complexity, you save that sketch. You say, I'm happy, I've built this as far as I can go, open up another 3D sketch and add on to it. So there may be a natural point where internal geometry and external geometry go into separate sketches naturally. This one shouldn't be that complicated, so we'll see how it plays out. Alright, so one of the things to keep in mind, I just hit Control-7 for the isometric. And I want to do a rectangle to start. And notice that I'm in the XY, and I call it the floating origin. I'm sure there's a very nice technical name for it somewhere. But if I draw this rectangle, then that gives me a location, but the thing to watch out for And let's see if I can get it to do it. Well, it may have picked up these guys. So that one's along Y, and that one is along X. So that's going to stay in that front plane. Let's do another one real quick that is just a corner rectangle. And if I locate it along that edge, then it is free to rotate, and notice that my box is giving me kind of the magnitude of its movement. So I can get this kind of wonky pretty fast to where it's not doing exactly what I expected it to do. So I can go through and I could put in all of those along X, along Y, along Z. Most of the relations are going to be the same or similar, but there are the handful of specialty items for the 3D sketch specifically. So one of the things that we can do is I need to decide, do I want my enclosure to be centered about the origin? Is that going to be helpful? Maybe the leading edge? I think that most of the time I've found that either having it midpoint, it kind of helps visualize the symmetry or visualize the geometry. So maybe the front mid or the center or the back mid as an option. So what I can do is double click on the top plane. That will put me in a 3D sketch plane, or it will activate it to where it's treating it as a 2D sketch. So when I do the center rectangle, and it is still in that from midpoints, which I'm okay with because those might come in handy later, and we go to place a couple of dimensions, and not sure what's going on with my video card there, but that was interesting. 36 by 24, and we may need to adjust those slightly for the material. So that's going to keep everything that I draw in this this plane until I double click. Once I double click, now we have that same type of situation where I can draw in the direction of the arrows, and because I have connection points that aren't going to rotate away from me, hopefully, I can go to the corners and I'll just snap to those locations and draw my lengths. Alright, and so all of these, to make it a little easier, if I select, Control Select, and one more Control Select, I can set to equal. And then, because of the direction that I pulled it, they're all going to be along Y. Alright, so going back to the corner rectangle, and I'm not in the plane that I want, so I'm going to hit the Tab button. And that's a little closer, but not quite it. So one more on the Tab. I drag it out to the other side, and then we see what moves. Alright, so everything's moving. That doesn't often happen, but occasionally. So perpendicular, perpendicular, parallels, the relations inferred correctly, and because it was equal, okay, if I hadn't made them equal, then I could get this a little lopsided. And then we said our height is going to be 16. Alright. So my earlier comment of complexity is this is not a very complex sketch, and we start getting into maybe managing wall thicknesses and overlaps and internal geometry for the weldments, and it builds up to that level of complexity. We're just going to have to respond as it comes up. So this is going to be my envelope, and I built this to my desired size, and the consideration is interior, exterior. Are we going to be able to cut that material exactly 16 by 36, exactly 16 by 24, or are we going to have to give it a little bit of fluff? So the design is in its perfect state when we start thinking about how this is structurally going to work and what kind of dimensions we put on it. We're in the Weldment sheet metal world where we can put some decent tolerances on it, but we're not going to be getting real crazy with it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. We need to find a location for it. So I'm thinking we'll just go back to the Dropbox folder and make an enclosure. if I can spell. And this is going to suffice for both an aluminum and a plastic, since there's not that much variation in the thicknesses. So kind of planning ahead of, do I need to have separate items. Alright, so this puts me back to where I can pick that weldment. It's time to check. One of the other things that I built this to the outside, and I need to think about the overlap, because there's a few things that I can do with the trims and how I want to manage these edges. So if I do the L shape around the top, and then the L shape will trim those out. One of the other things that I could do is I could split these lines or break these lines a ½ inch down, and it would only extend, so it would save me a little bit on the trim. So we'll put the miter in first, or the mitered frame in first, and then we'll take a look at what it would take to split those out and what kind of happens as we go. Alright, so a structural member, and we are in the ANSI inch weld. The LS angle still have the I guess I need to update that description. ½ inch by ½ inch by 0.63. Alright, I'll have to see what I did there. We'll go into the groups. So once I get it named correctly, we'll go into the groups, and I'm going to pick along the top edge. Each one of these is going to be done individually, because if I were to pick even the two same lengths, the angles are going to both be, right now it's in that L shape, it's going to do the same thing on the other side. So I want to be able to control those individually, and in doing so, let's go with a 90-degree rotation. And so that got me part way, so the next one would be 270. That puts it on the interior. I kind of check this in, that looks okay. And then we go new group, and I pick the next one, and we'll see, I think that one maybe goes 180. Take a look. And we're kind of going to the most common corner there, is the origin, the first location, but on rare occasions where I'd want to shift these to the different, maybe I decide I want to put the sheet metal on the interior. Then I'm going to go back and do the locate profile, and I would pick this interior corner so that I could wrap the wrap or sandwich this on the exterior. Alright, my next new group will go to corner, and we'll locate one more time. Alright, and its direction looks okay. Let's see, somewhere we should be seeing I'm expecting to see how it's going to trim. Right now it looks like it's doing the butt joint. Oh, there. Alright, so the little magenta pink corners there. Well, let's go ahead and get the last one in. Right now it looks like it's doing a butt joint of sorts. One more new group. Locate it. We'll rotate it 180 degrees. Alright, so there are certainly more settings that we can tinker with. 270 if we need to make the shifts. Okay, tried 3 times there and I still missed it. So let's see, if we started at 90, lost track of which way I was going. Alright, I can't see what it's doing at the 0. So since that looks okay, maybe it's the rotation. So if we were to mirror the profile, that takes it off the other way, and then let's go 180 degrees. Now we have a desired result. Okay. So let's double click on the corners. The corner treatment comes up. Actually, I would like to miter. Let's see if it'll let me have... Okay, so there it goes. I can see the angle. So that one's good at a miter. double click and we'll go to trim order 2 and accept. So some of these you're just going to have to push the buttons, see what it does, and then accept. So when I highlight those, it's just showing me which ones are which. And I guess I messed with it enough that I got it to go back to 1 instead of 2. So we accept, and then I go back to the top. All right, so the check, I got a couple of options. If the size, maybe the corner verticals were 1 inch by 1 inch, or I wanted to mix things up, then I would do this separately. So as mentioned earlier, I could take and use the split tool, and since I added that, we go up to Tools, Sketch Tools, and Split Entities. I'm customized it's one of the items I customized to the heads up, and if I split that line, well, it's going to warn me that there's an equal length there, so I would have needed to have done that first. But that would make it 2 segments. I could do all of those and say they're 1/2 inch, and it would only make the that group that length. So the other way is to just, if I created a separate weldment. So the thing with the structural member is all of these are the same size, and they're always going to be the same size as the intention. So I can include the vertical because I still intend for it to be on that length. So let's see if it goes into a new group. Alright, and then that looks like it went straight to the butt joint, which is desired result. New group, because this one needs to rotate 90 degrees. That's okay. Scroll down 90 degrees. Now that one said it failed to trim. So let's go back to group 6 since I messed something up there. And that looks like 180. Alright, so that one went 270. That should be okay on the trim. We go to that one. Let's see if it'll go 180. Okay, so that one's looking pretty good. One more new group. And let's see, that one's going to the outside, so that one should be a 90. Alright, so if we got all of those trims in place, then looks pretty good. So the main consideration is if they're all the same size, we can put them in one structural member. If these are going to be different sizes, or maybe it's tube or different profile, then I need to add a separate structural member. And then the next consideration is, do I modify it inside of the 3D sketch with like a split entities or drawing construction? Or do I go ahead with the trim and extend? If the trim and extends are going to accumulate quick and be a lot of them, I'm probably gonna try and modify the 3D sketch. Alright, so my next piece of geometry, that is the bar, we need to go locate for, and the size, and then we'll pick the lower 4 groups. Now I thought about having one in the middle, so if this is a 6 foot length, give or take just shy of an inch, and this is 4 foot, then we should have another 2 feet or so that I could put a bar through the center just to help with any kind of sag or on that group. So let's go ahead and locate the profile, and I want to put that on a corner and rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, and when I hit tab on the keyboard, it updates it. And it doesn't look like it's going to automatically trim it because it's not part of the same group. So we'll go to the next group, and should be the same thing. 90 degrees should be okay because it's rectangular. And when I locate the profile, we're going to be going to the interior again. The next new group will be along that line. Yep, make sure I'm getting the right boxes here, 90 degrees. Locate the profile. Alright, so pulled that one in. And I think that one looked a little strange, so I'm going to zoom over a little bit, see if it'll pick it up. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's happy with my point there, so I thought it would take those. There may be something where we have to have that point. Well, it took it on the other one. So let me hit Locate Profile one more time. Okay, so it has to be in the Locate Profile. Apparently I clicked out of it or missed the click. So we are 1, 2, 3. The fourth group is along the edge. 90 degrees. And then locate and make sure that I pick up on that corner. Alright, so it is trimming within the group, kind of doing those butt joints, but that's not really the desired result, which is fine. I can deal with that. So the last part of the group is, as I said, if we have a 6-foot piece, a 6-foot piece, and the two, double check. So yeah, the flat bar comes in 6-foot lengths. Obviously, if I go to a metal supplier, industrial metal supplier, Ryerson, or any number of metal companies, I could get longer lengths. I'm kind of expecting this to show up on my doorstep in usable lengths, though. So at 6-foot lengths, we're going to be one 6-foot bar, what would be a 4-foot, and then that should leave me enough to do one in the middle. So if I go back into the envelope as a modification, I should be able to search along that edge. And I am in the line. And my video card is not catching up, so we'll let it do its thing. And even though my arrows are pointing opposite, because I'm snapping location to location, midpoint to midpoint, it's going to override that orientation and put it the way that I want it. Alright, so one more new group. And then when I locate this profile, there's not going to be any rotation. But I'm going to go ahead and set it in place. Alright, so these are longer. And then in this case, we'll go ahead and trim. Alright, so same thing. I could have, actually that one might be the better example. So let's go with the bodies to be trimmed. And if we wanted a miter or a specific butt joint, we pick those. Otherwise, it's just going to end trim. And I'm going to pick the first bar. We're going to go to the face. And then to the other face. And because the bodies are the same length, I believe that I can come up and grab that one as well, and it will trim to the same location. Okay, if the geometry was a little bit different, I don't know that I could get away with that. Alright, so trim extend, nope, that is not a trimming boundary, that is the body to be trimmed. So let's go ahead and grab both of those. And then the face or plane, we can go from location, and since it's a little easier, let's see if it'll do it from like corner to corner here. Alright, so those give me my lengths. Alright, and then I mentioned the 1/2 inch thing, so since this isn't tied, if we were to split entities and split the entities, I could control select those two items and set them to equal. Now this may generate an error, which I'm okay with. I'll just reselect it and tell it that it's 1/2 inch, which is the thickness of our angle. And didn't generate an error, but it only did that one little segment for me. So let's go back into the group. And that was group number 5. And we're just going to clear out that line, pick along its, so we lost group 5, that's okay. Pick along that new line. And then when I locate the profile, go to the endpoint. and that's going to be my frame. Alright, so a couple different ways of managing the geometry. We are ready to do some sheet metal.